We are. Hello, hello. Happy first day of school to a lot of teens out there and parents out there. I know a lot of students here in Charlotte started last week, and I've been getting so many questions about Amy, do you miss being in the classroom as these kids go back to school? And when I first stopped teaching in a traditional classroom setting, I was really happy with the freedom and not having to go to meetings. But now I find myself, I found myself the past few years when kids are going back to school and teacher friends I know are going back to school. Yes, of course, I do miss that excitement. Quite honestly, I think despite the stress, despite going from sleepy dog days of summer to, this accelerated pace, I think this is the most exciting time of year. So I'm really wanting to share my knowledge, share this experience of working with a lot of teens and parents over the past. I haven't been teaching in a formal classroom for 8 years, and I have been finding that teens are really leaning into the one-on-one attention, really benefiting from traditional tutoring, traditional in the sense of tutoring one-on-one, the ability to ask questions and not feel silly, right, with 20 plus other students in the classroom. So I thought I'd share today some thoughts I had. This is what I would say if it was first day of class, other than some administrative details. And perhaps there are some parents out there who can share this with their teens and even make sense of the beginning of the school year themselves. So I think the most important message is this. And I had where I used to teach, there was a very strong advisory system. So it, and another term is the homeroom system. And unlike a lot of kids who say, I can't stand my homeroom teacher, usually the advisory class period at the beginning of the year was absolutely such a healthy way to start the year. So I had a really important administrator once say, you know what, Amy, the beginning of the school year often sets the tone for the entire rest of the year. Really, let's just breathe into that. The beginning of the school year often sets the tone for the rest of the year. And I think there is a lot of truth to that. And the question is, how can kids and parents really benefit from, even though they're feeling stressed, even though they're feeling discombobulated, even though they're feeling unorganized, how can they benefit from having the strongest start of the school year possible? So, I came up with some tips here, and this is what I would say to my students. So when you give these Facebook Lives, one thing that's tricky is you don't know who's watching all the time. I mean, I can see these eyeballs on here, but in my brain, I'm seeing students, but I know especially on the Facebook and LinkedIn platform where this is streamed to, it's mostly adults. So that's the trick. So I do hope that there are some light bulbs that go off for the adults that watch this to share this with their kids. So really, I think number one, what's so important that our kids have lost a lot of is this kind of this woo-woo idea of being comfortable with the uncomfortable. And let me break down what that means. And this is, of course, applicable to freshmen starting high school all the way through seniors. And of course, everywhere in between, like juniors and sophomores, right? Every year has its good points and its challenging points. Of course, I think it's more obvious to think of those challenging points with freshmen and also with seniors as they lean into thinking about where they'll be next year this time. So being comfortable with the uncomfortable, what does that mean? That means, I think, number one, going out of your way to talk to your teachers, going out of your way to have a buddy in class, even if your teen comes home and says, I don't have any friends in my class. Okay, well, make a friend. Will you feel uncomfortable? Well, that's okay. See, that's the thing. There's so much fear that goes on. There's so much rushing to these kids to help them. And for us to take away the discomfort, perhaps sometimes they lack knowing how to function when life does get uncomfortable. So what do they have to do? Number one, to have a good rapport with their teachers, and number two, have a buddy in class. This can go such a long way once October hits, when the curriculum becomes more challenging. So if your child already has a friend in class that they can text, or imagine this, talk on the phone to collaborate for study ideas, for group projects, to talk about the day's lesson. If they were sick, it makes it so much easier to I think, do better in the class. And number two, if you can teach your child how to have good rapport with the teacher, when your child does need to go in for extra help or doesn't understand some material, bridging that gap is so much easier. So those are 2 tips right there. Number 3, to set goals. Now, if you know me, I'm a big one for setting goals. It's okay to talk to your kids about the power of ambition, about the power of wanting to get straight A's, and about the power of working through difficult times. So number 3, write down your goals. What big goals, whether you're a senior applying to colleges, whether you're a freshman starting at a new school, what big goals can you write down right now, or at least this coming weekend once you have time to breathe? And maybe some students will say, like, well, that's easy to school. My big goals are, if I'm a senior, to get accepted to my #1 college. And if I'm a freshman or a sophomore or junior, my big goals are to get the best grades possible. Okay, well, are those written down? Because it's a lot easier to skip out on those goals. It's a lot easier to down level those goals when the times get tough. So number 3, if goals are written down, I believe that they are more readily matched. So, the other thing, number 4, is what happens, what happens when there is a conflict? What happens when the learning material does get difficult? Is there a plan in place? So number 4, is there a conflict plan in place in order to work through difficulty, in order to push through going to get help from that teacher, even though your child doesn't really like that teacher? Like, what is the plan in place? And a lot of you might say, like, oh, this is so easy for you, Amy. You were a teacher for a long time. You've always loved school. Well, no, it's not always easy for me. And it's not always easy for me to teach this also. So number 5 is this. It's how can we help our kids to stay positive? How can we help our kids to thrive on, focusing on giving people actually compliments, giving teachers compliments behind their back, giving other kids compliments, right? To take 100% responsibility for their own lives. I've found, and this is true, it's so much easier to complain. It's so much easier to blame the coach. Believe me, I live with this every day. It's so much easier to blame that student in school who distracts you. But how is it? And this is number 5, and I think this is so important for health and well-being. I think this is so important for college admissions. I think this is so important for getting the best grades. How can you help train your kids to not complain? Because by complaining, they're giving their power away, right? So then we move ourselves into finding that perfect balance between what we can control and what we can't control. What your kids, they're not going to change the way a coach coaches. They're not going to change the way a teacher teaches. And you're probably not either. So then what is within our realm of control? And that gets down to, I think, setting goals for the semester on many different levels, with college admissions, with finishing these college admissions essays, with getting great grades, with being the best player they can be on that field. Because when our kids feel like they have more control, when they don't care so much about the negative forces out there, and there are a lot of them, that's when they really soar. That's when they really step into who they're meant to be. So I have a lot to say. I was thinking of doing a program, like hopping on here and doing something like, college essay in 100 days. And I would also infuse and weave in study tips and health and well-being tips, right? So I know for seniors right now, a lot of seniors have great ideas for their Common App essays, or their parents have good ideas for them, and they're really just blocked with how to move forward. Some are not. Some have been working diligently since June. And if that's not the case, that's okay. So a lot of parents who call right now say, oh, Amy, I'm so behind on this. And I'll say, no, this is the perfect timing, because all we have is now, right? So I will commit to college essay in 100 days. There'll also be a lot of other information that will stream in. I'll have guests on the program here. And if you have a question, if you have a topic, kind parents out there, if you have a concern, because I know there are a lot of them, post a comment, send me a message on Facebook. If you know me personally, send me an email, which is amy@totalwritingenrichment.com. We have a lot in store for the rest of this school year. We have the Ace Your Essays Writing Club, which offers one-on-one writing and literature support to those motivated students, not students whose parents are dragging them there, like pulling a tooth out, knowing this is the best. But this is for the student who's just chomping at the bit to know the skills they need, to know what they have to do to get an A in the class, right? As my dad made me watch these tapes in the 80s, where there's a will, there's an A. Well, sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes not. So anyway, please post a comment. Please ask me a question. I want to commit to doing these more. I've got a lot to share. There's a lot of stress out there. And I firmly believe that with the right strategy, with the right mindset, with teaching our kids how to take action, and even if that means being uncomfortable sometimes, on the other side of fear is freedom. So we will talk to you soon. And when I say we, I'm going to bring in my new tutors. I think that'd be fabulous for everyone to see them and hear from them and hear the value they have to offer. Already working with many freshmen through seniors. We are helping students in college also who might have missed the fundamentals of writing if they were not receiving the education that the schools could have provided during COVID. So a whole abundance of information, a whole lot of fun ahead for you. So I'll be a little bit more organized with these and send out when I am going live and a more detailed curriculum, but wanted to hop in here and cheers to a positive, fantastic school year. Why not make this one the best? Why not help your kids just knock it out of the ballpark? And I think we need to discuss what that means, of course. So thank you so much. Please, if you're watching this on the replay, please post a comment, please say hello, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.